We lied. We said we'd talk to you guys next week. It's not next week. It's Friday. We're recording another podcast. I didn't get as many requests for this one, but I figured we'll do it anyway.
I don't think we lied. I mean, we still are doing one next week.
That's true. I think I said the next time we talk to everyone, it would be after the start of free agency. So that part's a lie.
Well, it wasn't a lie because when you said it, you thought it was the truth.
That's true.
May have been a grievous mistake on your part, but
a retroactive lie.
I guess it was.
Yeah. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Yeah, some news on Friday, so we didn't want to wait the whole weekend, and then there's likely to be more next week. So we figured let's get to it now while we have a moment. This won't be a long podcast, but Brandon Graham back for I say that. I know you're laughing.
Every time we say it won't be a long podcast, 2 hours later, we're sitting here talking about Pat Ryan or something. But anyway.
Yeah. So Brandon Graham back on a 1-year deal. Darius Slay. We'll get into all the Darius Slay stuff in a little bit. But what we know for sure is that Brandon Graham's back for another year, and that's fun.
Yeah, and it's not just a sentimentality thing. I mean, he'll tie Chuck Bednarik as only the second Eagle ever to play 14 years in an Eagles uniform, which is really, it's incredible in this age of free agency and shorter careers for anyone to play 14 years period, but for the same team. He'll be the first guy since Chuck. And, he almost signed with the Giants that one time in free agency. And that would have changed certainly a lot in the course of this franchise's history. But, he's still a good player. He's still a good pass rusher. They found a perfect way to use him this past year where his reps were really limited, and he just got the most out of his limited reps and had the best year sack-wise of his career. I thought he was really, really good. And they'll have that luxury with the other edge rushers they have under contract. That's really the only position on defense that's not maybe going to be decimated by free agency. So they're going to have a pretty good stable of edge rushers with Sweat coming back, Reddick coming back, Barnett. We don't know exactly what we'll get from him, but he's under contract. So they've got those guys. They've got the pass rush. And, it's just nice to have him here. And we were talking in the newsroom, I guess it was on Thursday, about the last Pro Bowl Eagle to spend his whole career with the Eagles. And you have to go back to Jerome Brown as far as guys who, retired as an Eagle. It's Mike Quick is the last guy to be drafted by the Eagles, make a Pro Bowl, and retire having never played for another team. So Wes Hopkins almost did. He played one preseason game for the Chiefs, then re-signed with the Eagles, but he was with the Chiefs. So it's I think it's a dual thing. It's great to have him in that locker room where he belongs, with this franchise where he belongs, but he's a good player. And you get a good player on a fair contract. It's a win-win.
Yeah, I think that's the important note here is this is not a handout to a player they like and they want to keep around. They think he can really still help. And based on his season in 2022, he can. I mean, 11 sacks and really disruptive. I think he's lost a step. I think he'd probably even admit that. But that's okay. He's a third rusher. And he was really good last year. And aside from the 14 years, he has a chance to play the most games in an Eagles uniform. He's 10 behind David Akers. So if he stays healthy this year, he'll have a chance to pass that.
If he doesn't get benched. But
I wouldn't think that would happen either.
No, I don't think that'll happen. But I was just being a smartass. But yeah, it's and look, we all know what he means in this city, in that locker room. He's an Eagle and he belongs here. But yeah, he's still a good player. And for him to do what he did last year at his age was really incredible, especially coming off that injury. So I don't know. I'd be surprised if he has another double-digit sack season at 35 or 36.
What if he just finishes his career with 3 double-digit sack seasons and leaves?
With BG, nothing surprises you. And he's had a unique career. I mean, there's never been another player in NFL history who, and I looked this up, and it's another thing that I spent way too much time looking up, but He's like the first player to have an 11 sack season to have his first double-digit sack season in his 13th season, something like that. So he's a unique guy, and we all know the issues he had early in his career, and didn't play much, didn't produce, and he's just kind of made himself through sheer persistence and determination, made himself into a really good player. Second half of his career, it's a great story. We all know what he meant to the Super Bowl team, the 2017 Super Bowl team, as well as this last one. So I like what he said. He said, Jalen's going to win. He's going to win a Super Bowl, and I want to be here for it. I want to be part of that team. So whether he's still here when Jalen does win one, time will tell. But wouldn't count out anything with BG and Jalen Hurts involved.
It's one of my favorite stories.
BG.
I mean, if I would have told you in year 3 that he would be here in year 14, there's no way. Just no way. I mean, even for him to be in the league, at this point would have been shocking. I give him a ton of credit, and not many guys could have come through on the other side of that. It was rough for him. I mean, I always tell a story. His mom told me that she wouldn't wear his jersey to games. I mean, it was that bad here. So for him
he was perceived as a first round bust for several years. I mean, for the first 4 or 5 years of his career, the whole Washburn thing, Washburn didn't want to play him. There was a definite personality conflict there, even though his son is now his position coach, Jeremiah Washburn. But the one thing about BG, and I mean, there was a point where he was blocking all the writers on social media. And we were hard on him because it wasn't going well. And but I mean, he's always been a class act, and he's just a guy that it's a great story. It's a unique story. You don't see a lot of guys, like you said, come out the other side of what he went through. Maybe later round picks do, eventually later in their career, they get an opportunity. This guy was a first round pick. And it wasn't until year 12 that he made a Pro Bowl.
Yeah. He wasn't a starter until year 6.
Year 6, yeah. He started a game here and there. But I mean, he's got more sacks in his 30s than in his 20s. He's just really made himself a good player. And he's in a perfect situation where, he can play. I mean, there were games last year where he played you'd see him make plays all over the place. He'd have 2.5 sacks, and you look at the next morning at the play time, the snap counts, and you have 16 snaps. You're he barely played, but he can make such an impact on the game, without playing a ton of snaps. And he's going to be in a position with Sweat and Reddick and possibly Barnett where he can be in that role. I'll never forget something he said to me late in the season. He was getting all those sacks, and he'd gotten over double digits for the first time. And he was like, and you have to, BG, his locker is like an open forum. You just talk to BG. It's what you do when you're in a locker room. Say you have 3 guys you need to talk to, and none of them are in there. You just go talk to BG, and he'd be like, man, Rube, I don't know what it is, but all those years I would just miss guys. I would have them and they'd break away. But this year, I'm getting them. I'm getting them down. I'm getting sacks. I don't know what it is. They're just coming to me. And I said, well, after 12 years, you're due. You're due. But I really think the Super Bowl play, I mean, he had a good year that year. But, I mean, that play really took him into folk hero status. And he's been really good ever since then, which is really interesting. It's that play really, I think that play to me really symbolized his career. It was probably how many times did Brady throw that game? 56 or something? It was probably BG's 40th pass rush of the game. And that determination, that persistence, he just kept coming. And you tell the story about who was the coach that you talked to? Was it
Chris Wilson?
Chris Wilson, right? About it's going to be a game where you just you just keep coming. Eventually, someone's going to make a play. And I've watched that BG strip sack 100 times, and it's just It's pure effort. It's pure just, and it's so cool when his hand hits Brady. Like it comes out of nowhere. Like he's getting blocked. He's getting blocked. And he just kind of, all of a sudden there's his hand and there's the ball. And there's Derek Barnett running the wrong way. It's incredible to watch that play. I think that play really, really symbolizes his career in just nonstop effort, never giving up, just being so determined to be what he wanted to be. And that play might have won them the game. I mean, the Patriots got the ball again, but not with not much time left. And who knows if he doesn't make that play, who knows, the whole course of his franchise's history could be different.
Yeah. And he's probably not here. You never know. Here. I mean, everything changes. It's like butterfly effect at that point. But it's fun to watch how his career's gone. And we always say like guys aren't going to take hometown discounts. It doesn't happen. It happened here. It looks like we don't have the official numbers yet. ESPN reported 1 year worth up to $6 million, which is an incredible bargain for a guy who just had 11 sacks.
Absolutely.
There are roughly 40 pass rushers in the league who have a higher APY than $6 million per year. So this is a significant hometown discount he's giving the Eagles. And he's the one guy like it makes sense for.
Right.
Because like he wants to be here. And it sounds silly, but like what's a few $1 million with someone who's made that much money? Where like he has roots here, and we talked about this with Fletcher. It's like we can see Fletcher in another uniform. The thought of like BG in a Browns uniform is just wrong. It's just not right.
Yeah, we'd be at joint practices in August, just like I can't even look. I can't even look at this. You're right, and I mean it was like that back in the day when like all of a sudden there's Reggie White in a Packers uniform. But yeah, seeing BG out of all the, maybe like Chuck Bednarik finishing his career with the Bengals or something. It just doesn't. Well, the Bengals didn't exist yet, but it was, you know what I mean.
I get it. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just
Bednarik finishing his career with the Texans.
Who's that?
With the Texans, the Chuck Bednarik. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Reggie actually finished his career with the Panthers, I think. But yeah, really happy for him, and it's a manageable cap hit, and and they get a good pass rusher back. So I think BG, when he retires, if he ever retires, I'd be surprised if the Eagles don't have some sort of job for him. Don't know what he'd want to do, if it would be in scouting, or I don't think he'd want to coach. But I'm just glad that whatever it is, it's put off for another year, because I like having it just for purely selfish reasons. I love the guy.
The whole building feels that way too. It's not like it's just us. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone in that building is happy that he's going to be back there.
Yeah.
And that's not a reason you pay someone a big contract, but you want them. You want them around.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're happy he's back. We'll get into the Darius Slay thing on the other side. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in the great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, Rube. Darius Slay, why don't you just give us a quick rundown of the news that came out, and then we'll kind of give our thoughts on what it actually means.
Yeah, so I guess the newsy part is reported by ESPN. I'm sorry, I forget the person's name.
It was Diana Rustini.
Diana Rustini. She tweeted this morning that the Eagles have granted Drew Rosenhaus, who's Slay's agent, permission to seek a trade. And then Albert Breer from NFL Network a few minutes later.
Sports Illustrated now.
You're right. I'm sorry. I know that. Sports Illustrated, SI.
Used to be. You're just
used to be. I still can't believe I made that mistake with Peter King on our podcast two pods ago with Peter. I don't follow who people work for. And, it's funny. A lot of people don't because we tweet our stories out. Like a lot of people think I work for the Inquirer. I don't know if you get that, because they just they click on stories from links on social media. It's not like they're going to, right to your page or something. I don't know. So people think I work for who knows. But anyway.
Every once in a while, I had someone out here. I was walking into the stadium. They said, "Hey, Elliot." I thought about being, "Hey, F you." Just keep walking.
Yeah. But anyway, Breer tweets that, Slay hasn't requested a trade. And that this is all part of negotiating. And so that's where we are. And just from talking to people, look, Slay's got 1 year left on his contract at $17.5 million. Signed a 3-year deal, $50 million when they got him from the Lions 3 years ago this week. And, he if you're a 32-year-old 5-time Pro Bowl, you don't want to go into the last year of your deal. You just don't want to go into the last year of a deal. You want long-term security. He's probably only going to get one more contract. And if you're the Eagles, you kind of don't want to carry, I think, what is it, 21 million cap hit?
Over 26 million.
Oh, over 26, my bad. That's a huge number. So I think both sides would probably like to figure something out where Slay will be here, but his cap figure won't be that high. And the way to do that is to, add a couple years generally and lower the cap hits and get Slay some money. But it's a little unusual just because of his age. And his play did drop off. He's a really good player. For whatever reason, he just wasn't as good in the second half of the season. So where that kind of affects his value in the Eagles' eyes, I don't know. Obviously, Bradbury's almost certainly not going to be here. So, you want Slay here. He's still your best cornerback. Obviously, you don't have another established starting cornerback on the roster. So I guess what I'm saying is the whole thing falls under negotiating. And, Rosenhaus is trying to pressure the Eagles a little bit to getting something done by trying to establish his value with another team. They're not going to trade him. I mean, so most likely they'll agree on something that eases the cap hit and gives Slay a little money, but they don't have a lot of, I guess part of it is you don't want to get yourself into a bigger cap hit down the road where the guy's going to be 34 at the end of a 3-year extension. So it's a little tricky situation. Slay's made it clear he wants to be here. He seems to really love playing here. You wrote a story the other day, just a couple of days ago, about how he was talking on his podcast about how he's welcoming Sean Desai, the new defensive coordinator, and can't wait to get started working with him. And I'm a leader, so that's what you do as a leader. You embrace the guy, and what can I do to make it easier for you? And I want to start learning his system. He clearly wants to be here. This guy never won the last place he was at, so that's where we're at, and we'll see where it goes from here. Is that an accurate representation of a weird situation?
Yeah, I think so. To kind of break down what his contract looks like right now, he has $17 million in base salary this year. So the Eagles would probably like to get that down. They don't want to have a $26 million cap hit, and there aren't many opportunities for them to save cap space with pre-existing contracts. It's really Slay, Lane Johnson, and then Jake Elliott, who they reportedly already restructured. So they could restructure Slay as like a flat restructure, pay him out a bonus, and then drop his base salary pretty much to league minimum. But Slay wants, for Slay to do that, he has a little bit of leverage now too, because the Eagles need to do that. But Slay wants some extra money on top of that. He wants to basically have some guarantees after the season. He wants to be here. And the reason it's tricky is because of his age. But that's kind of the situation. I think the Eagles need to get that number down one way or the other. And that, I think this is Slay and Rosenhaus realizing, we have a little bit of leverage here because they need this from us. We need something in return, and giving us a lump sum payout is not enough because we're going to get that money anyway.
Yeah. And what do you make of his play the second half of the season?
I still think he's a very good player. I don't read into it as much as I think some other people are. And I know we've gotten a ton of questions like, well, why don't they just move on from Slay and sign Bradbury? And there's a few reasons I wouldn't do that. At the top of my list is Slay's a better player. He just is. Bradbury was more consistent last year, but Slay's better. And the trade part of it doesn't really work out financially. Like they would save a little bit of cap space if they traded him before June 1st, but it would also leave 22 million in dead cap space, and you'd save about 3.7 mil in cap space. So is that a reason to trade your best defensive player?
Hassan Reddick's getting traded?
One of your best defensive players?
Yeah, no, it is. It's a tricky situation. And also, I mean, Bradbury is, well, he's only a couple of years younger. If I know we disagree on this. Lately, we've disagreed on a lot, which is good. But if I could just keep one of them, if they were both free agents, I would sign Bradbury.
You'd sign the second best of the two?
Well, like you said, he's more consistent, which is kind of a big deal for cornerbacks.
Okay.
Slay will make more flash plays, although he didn't really make a lot.
He also had the tougher responsibility all year.
Sure, he did. He did. There's no question about it. Look, I'm not – Slay's still a great player, but the second half concerns me a little bit. But again, Bradbury didn't have a good game in the Super Bowl himself. But if it was one or the other, I'd probably keep Bradbury at this point, just because of the level of play throughout the season, where that decline by Slay was pronounced and concerning. And they have nothing else. I mean, the cupboard's bare. I mean, Zach McPherson, who knows? I don't know. Could he come in and be a starter? Maybe. I can't imagine it'd be anywhere close to the level of those guys. So I would think no matter what, they're going to draft a guy in the first 2 rounds, a corner. There's some good corners out there. I still think at 10 makes sense. But yeah, they got to figure out a way. And look, Howie's good at this, and Howie's got a good relationship with Rosenhaus. I'm sure he's rolling his eyes right now a little bit because he doesn't like this kind of stuff playing out in the media, but it's out there, and they got to figure it out.
Yeah,
I think they will, and I think they will. They generally do.
Yeah, and I think I don't want us to get in the trap of just thinking they're going to draft a corner at 10, because Howie has found unique ways in the last, like they got Slay through a trade. They waited on Bradbury. They waited on Steven Nelson, and there's no guarantee they'll be able to figure it out again. But Howie's probably looking at that thinking, well, I figured it out before. Probably figure it out again. I don't know if that's the case. Now, certainly if you lose both of your starting corners, that's alarming, especially when they're two good players like this. But I have a hard time seeing a trade for Slay. I don't even know what he would bring back in terms of draft picks. Like the Eagles traded a 3rd and a 5 for him.
Yeah. And that was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, teams don't trade picks for older players. They just don't anymore. I mean, because draft picks that's the lifeblood of your team, and they're cost controlled, and they're young, and younger players don't get hurt as much. Just that's what all the analytics say. It makes sense. So yeah, I don't think he's got huge value on the trade market as far
and
as
that's what I look at. So if I'm the Eagles and I'm looking at this thinking, okay, well, you can go look for a trade and kind of establish the value that could give us some parameters, but why would we trade a player who's not going to bring much back in terms of draft compensation to save $3.7 million on the cap this year? It would save some next year as well, but I don't know if that's enough incentive for them to do it, because then they're really left with nothing at the cornerback spot.
Right. No, he'll be here and he'll be happy. And There's no doubt in my mind Howie will figure out a way to make the numbers work. I shouldn't say no doubt, but I think it's pretty likely.
Yeah, I think it's likely he's back. But you
Yeah.
never know. I mean, sometimes this is all it takes, and then it kind of unravels a little bit. Do you think Howie's like, we didn't hire Matt Patricia, Slay? Matt Patricia's not here.
Yeah, I expected this if they hired Matt Patricia, but they were never going to hire Matt Patricia. They never even interviewed him or anything. But yeah, it's an interesting situation, and I understand that if you're a 5-time Pro Bowl, or you're considered one of the top corners in the league, you're gonna feel disrespected going into the final year of your contract. That's just how. That's just the system that we're in. But the Eagles are in a tricky spot too, just because of their cap issues and with the Jalen contract coming up. So, like in a normal year, I think Slay would have been they would have done it all. They would have done something with him already, along with re-signing Hargrave and re-signing, Bradbury, and who knows what else they would have done. But it's not a normal year, and this cap situation is a very real thing. They just can't do everything they want to do. So be interesting to see where it goes from here.
I do want to give a quick shout out to the Montgomery and Company podcast. That's where Slay was just recently, and that's where he said he wanted an extension. His quote was, "I want an extension with the Eagles. I love the Eagles. I love that money." So of course I'm going to be talking about it this offseason. That's how we know for sure he wants an extension. Now we can read the contract and be like, yeah, he wants an extension, but wanted to shout them out real quick. I think it gets figured out.
Yeah. If not, Josh Jobe, you're up.
Might be. You got anything else here?
No. I just hope everyone has a great weekend. Next week's going to be really fun. It's going to be nonstop action starting noon Monday, and we'll be on top of it for you guys.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's always one of the craziest times of the year, and the Eagles are never super quiet. There's always something. Always something.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, as this starts, is going to be disappointing. I mean, the first day, they could lose some really important parts of that 2022 team in the first few hours of the legal tampering period. So it's going to be difficult, but we'll be there through it all.
If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. We'll talk to you guys next week, hopefully for real this time. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye.